I'm sure you've all heard of Group B. Say that name and you're destined to have someone who's never watched a single round of the World Rally Championship and who also thinks that Group B was the name of a separate championship will tell you all about it. Group B is the greatest motorsport ever. The cars were the fastest rally cars ever. The spectators were crazy, the cars had crazy amounts of technology and were hard to drive. Have you seen the video of that Group B Audi absolutely destroying that modern 1,000 horsepower electric rallycross car at the Race of Champions? Did you know that in 1986 Henry Toivonen went to Estoril with his Group B Lancia Delta and set a lap time faster than all the F1 cars? WRC is for boys, Group B was for men. The drivers wouldn't drink water to rehydrate like they do these days, no way. They drink molten lava and wash it down with pure petrol. In fact, in every stage, they were required to get out of the car and wrestle shirtless with a bear and a lion at the same time. In fact, the drivers were so manly that at the end of every stage, they wouldn't go and congratulate the other drivers. No, they'd get out, play with each other's balls like real men. Then in 1987, they went woke and banned Group B and killed rallying forever. They'll tell you all this, but it's bullshit. The reality is, it's a load of bullshit. But this needs to be addressed, because it is affecting modern rallying. Now, to start off with, I don't want to say Group B was bad. It certainly had some cool things. Heavily turbocharged silhouette cars with crazy levels of technology are always going to be cool. Oh, sorry, it appears I've brought up some footage of a modern Rally 1 car. Let me just change that. Now we've got the Group B footage. Anyway, as I was saying, Group B cars were cool. They were amazing cars, I won't deny that. But the problems come when it comes to any discussion of rallying in the modern era. Anytime you discuss modern rallying or any era of rallying that isn't specifically 1981 to 1986, you'll be met with some Group B fan that seems to have spawned out of nowhere who will tell you that any other period of rallying in history is terrible, boring rubbish and we should all just bring back Group B and that any other rule set in rallying isn't worth watching. When you consider the number of self-proclaimed rally fans who have literally never watched a rally, you realise the scale of this problem. Now, these self-proclaimed rally fans believe that WRC died in 1986 because Group B was banned and nothing else is worth watching. Imagine if every self-proclaimed rally fan actually watched rallying. WRC would bring in record audiences. So let's finally let these myths die. You may have heard some variation of this story at some point, some versions making more outlandish claims than others, but it goes like this. 1986, Henry Toivonen goes to Estoril, he sets a lap time in a Lancia Delta S4 that was faster than a Formula 1 car. Now, those of you who know literally anything about cars will know already that this is complete nonsense. You may have also watched Jimmy Broadbent disproving this myth using Assetto Corsa. But I'm going to go a step further than that and say that a 1980s Formula 1 car is not just faster than a Group B rally car on a circuit, that's obvious, but also faster than a rally car on a tarmac rally stage. In fact, since we live in a world where highly accurate simulators exist, I'll just go ahead and demonstrate this with Assetto Corsa. Now, I'm using Assetto Corsa instead of real life because we don't actually know what sort of lap time Toivonen set. There's no real-life data, and flying to Europe and acquiring a 1980s F1 car and a Group B rally car is beyond the budget of this video. But fear not, Assetto Corsa does use plenty of real-life technical data to keep pace of the simulated cars within a percentage point of the real car's pace. And this is mostly just for demonstrative purposes because I'll get into some more strong arguments after this. Now, I'll use the Audi Quattro S1 Pikes Peak for this. It's a little bit faster than a normal Group B rally car, to really give the Group B car an advantage. Let's just see how it goes. Now, I'm not the best on tarmac, I do prefer gravel, so this won't be the best driving you've ever seen, but That is a 725.9. Not bad. Now for the F1 car. Poorly driven, but that's already a 656.8, absolutely destroying the Group B car. So no, a Group B car isn't faster around a track than an F1 car. It's not even faster up a rally stage. But here's the main argument to this is, why would they be faster than a Formula 1 car around a racetrack? Like, just think about it for more than half a second. Group B cars had 550 horsepower at the most. F1 cars at the time had 1,000 horsepower. Group B cars at their lightest weighed 890 kilograms. Formula 1 cars at the time weighed 540 kilograms. That's with the driver included. F1 cars had massive wings and slick tyres, but a sleek body, so lots of downforce, but not a lot of parasitic drag. Rally cars had less wings and chunkier bodies. The only advantage they had was all-wheel drive. They had soft, floppy suspension for absorbing the bumps on public roads. Why would a Group B car be faster than a Formula 1 car? It doesn't make sense. Okay, they aren't as fast as F1 cars, not even from the 1980s, not even on a rally stage. But at least they're the fastest rally cars of all time, right? Well, actually, no. Now, if you want to go by top speed, sure, top speed is a really stupid way of measuring how fast a rally car is, though, because a rally car's top speed is just determined by the gearing. There's almost no long straights in rallying, so the cars are focused entirely on tight corner performance. They're intentionally unstable to keep up agility and keep a high average speed, because average stage speed is the way you actually measure how fast a rally car is, since that's what determines who wins the rally. The Group B cars were very quickly beaten on pace by their replacements. But how long did this take? Not that long at all. Now, stages, they get lengthened and shortened by a few meters every year, mostly just due to various minor factors. Between the two sets of boards, the stages stay the same. So although you can't really compare the exact stage times, you can compare the average stage speed that the cars were driving to work out which would win when driving the same stage. So let's first turn the clock back to 1986, the Rally of France. What I'm going to discuss is the Orléans-Zicarot stage. In 1986, the winning time was 16 minutes 19 seconds, but more crucially, the average speed was 94.1, remember that. In 1992, Andrea Agnelli set a time of 16 minutes and 4 seconds. Now this stage was shortened by just a few meters, but thanks to the average speed, we can adjust for that. Andrea Agnelli's average speed was 94.7. That means it only took until 1992 for Group A rally cars to get as fast as Group B cars. The manufacturers had to put their money into developing the suspension, the transmission, and the chassis rather than just throwing power at it. But let's put into perspective just how slow Group B cars really were compared to today. For this, I'll use Rally New Zealand's Funga Coast stage. Now, Group B cars didn't run this stage at their peak in 1986, but we now know that the cars in 1992 were just as fast as the Group B cars. On the Funga Coast stage in 1992, Piero Liatti in the Lancia Delta averaged 77.4, so a Group B car would be around that figure. By 2004, however, Markus Grönholm on the same stage managed an average speed of 85.4. That's quite a significant time saving over nearly 30 kilometers of rally stage. But we're not done yet, because we can now compare this to a modern car. In 2022, Sebastien Ogier managed an average speed of 89.3, another improvement over the time set by Grönholm. But that's not all. When Grönholm set that stage in 2004, it was perfectly dry and clear conditions. Ogier set this time in conditions that look like this. The idea that Group B cars are faster than modern rally cars has absolutely no basis in reality, yet people still keep repeating this claim. Oh, but haven't you seen that video of the Audi Quattro beating a modern 1000 horsepower electric rallycross car? This shows that Group B cars are faster than the modern stuff. Well, first of all, I don't remember WRC replacing the Rally 1 cars that actually compete with this electric rallycross car, but more importantly, it wasn't as level a playing field as you might think. And I'm going to explain why, but first I'll have to explain a few things about how snow tyres work in rallying. But bear with me, this is still very relevant to how and why the playing field was not at all level here. Snow tyres in WRC make their grip very differently from regular tyres on any other surface. It's not the friction between the rubber and the snow that makes most of the grip. It's actually the tungsten studs sticking into the ice and digging into it. The more pressure you put into these studs, the deeper it'll dig into the ice, and the more grip you'll have. Therefore, making the tyres narrow actually gives you more grip on snow. The Audi Quattro was of course on real snow tyres, narrow tyres. Now, let's check out what the FC1 was on. Oh no, those don't look right to me. They've got studs, yes, but they're quite clearly very wide. Take a closer look and you'll see that the tread pattern in the rubber is also slick, so it can't clear through the snow to get to the ice anyway. No, supergluing some screws to a racing slick does not make it a real snow tyre. The fact that a Group B car was faster than a car that was on a slick tyre with some screws sticky taped to it on this stage makes the whole thing much less impressive. Sure, it had 1000 horsepower, but you can't get any of that 1000 horsepower down when you've got this for a tyre on your car. So no, this video doesn't prove anything at all.
It's all about humanity.
Sure, they're not the fastest, but at least the drivers back then were real men. Nobody cared about safety and they were putting themselves at risk. The cars were real and there was no electronic assistance on them. They were dramatic and the drivers were flat out the whole time. Well, this isn't actually true either. Sure, the safety standards were lower, but that's not a good thing. And the fragility of the cars meant they couldn't drive them flat out most of the time. On the other hand, the strength of modern rally cars means that they do drive at the limit of what the car is physically capable of the whole time. You see, here's the thing. Those Group B compilations you see on YouTube, they show the highlights. They show the times when Group B cars are going absolutely flat out, and they usually all show the same few specific bits of footage. What they don't show is what Group B cars were like on average, because on average the drivers had to back off and manage the car a whole lot more than modern drivers. Now, the rallies were generally longer back then. Even the ones that weren't much longer, such as Finland, had far more car management involved. Just look at how they took the jumps back then. The Group B cars, they had to slow right down and jump short and low. Now check out the modern cars. That is a big difference. They fly higher and further on the jumps because they're tough cars these days. They aren't made of cardboard like the Group B stuff. Now, look at the sort of lines they take. The Group B cars, they're not precise. They're not using the line you'd expect. They're staying away from the edges of the road because it's rough. And you can break the car going down to the edges of the road. Now, check out the modern stuff to compare it. It's using absolutely everything. Nothing is left on the table. They are driving to the limit of grip, not to the limit of their cardboard car's fragility. That's the big difference between Group B and modern rallying. Also, because we've actually got crowd control, you don't have to worry about some idiot standing on the road. The reality is that Group B wasn't about being permanently on the limit. Drivers going flat out the whole time is a new thing. It's not something that's always been a part of rallying. Let's look back to the early 2000s, when the Safari Rally was still an endurance event, since the rallies in the Group B era were longer, and compare it to the 1980s Safari Rally. First, here's the Group B cars. They're not exactly going hell for leather, are they? Now, check out the 2000s cars for comparison. Even the Peugeot 206, which was famed for being fragile, is absolutely going for it compared with what the Quattro was doing there. And just remember, the Audi Quattro is one of the most sturdy Group B cars there was. The rest of them were much weaker than that. It wasn't made of cardboard and sticky tape like the rest of the Group B cars. The drivers of the 1980s were also less talented than modern rally drivers. Group B era drivers often complained that the cars were so fast that their thinking couldn't keep up with a car. Modern rally cars are much faster, but I've never heard this complaint from any modern rally driver. Oh yeah, and in 2011 they banned electronic driver aids such as ABS, so don't go around claiming that rally cars these days are easy, because they haven't got all the electronic systems you think they have. It's not just the speed. There are some extra elements of modern cars that are even harder than the older cars to drive. For example, the hybrid system can give some very unexpected power spikes, which can send you off the road if you're not careful. That's not to say that Group B cars were easy to drive, because that'd be a complete nonsense claim in itself. Group B cars were difficult to drive in their own ways. They had a whole lot more turbo lag, so the throttle was unpredictable, the suspension was crap, and they had very much their own difficulties. Okay, sure, the modern cars are quite cool, but there's only 6 full-time drivers in the top class and 3 manufacturers. Who cares how fast and exciting the modern cars are when there's only 6 full-time drivers? Plus, if you want to watch every stage live, you have to pay €100 a year for Rally TV. Well, you're not going to like how Group B was, because even by 1986, no driver in the World Rally Championship was full-time. The first time the world champion was a full-time driver was 1994. Flyaway rounds of the World Rally Championship were especially quiet. 1986 Rally Argentina, only 8 cars contested the top class, 2 of which were heavily outdated cars from 1983 with rear-wheel drive and less than 300 horsepower, meaning they weren't exactly in the fight, even if they were Group B cars on paper. There was only 6 cars that were actually in the fight. The reality is, though, safety aside, Group B was expensive, and it was always going to fail eventually. The manufacturers were already dropping off by 1986 because it became a spending war. Manufacturers were just going to keep showing up with more and more ridiculous concepts until they dropped down to one manufacturer. Regardless of safety, the FIA would be forced to make Group A the top class of the World Rally Championship, otherwise it would collapse. So, the Group B era had exactly the same problem when it comes to the lack of manufacturer involvement. What about Rally TV being €100 and the decline in audiences? I hate to break it to you, but there's literally never been a free broadcast of every stage in WRC. In fact, they didn't even broadcast every stage of the rally until 2018 for any price. Every year before 2018, they only did highlights. Now, I do think they should make Rally TV cheaper, or maybe even free, to bring in more viewers. But even with all the problems WRC live broadcasting has, it's still more accessible than any time in the sport's history. That's not to say they shouldn't be doing better, they absolutely should be, but they have improved over the years. In terms of event attendance, that peaked in the 2000s, but it's still high. This year, Portugal recorded an event attendance of 800,000. Before WRC Plus All Live was released, WRC broadcasts consisted of 2 features: televised stages and highlights packages. They would televise around 4 stages per day, and then release a 1-hour highlights package at the end of the rally. What we know is that WRC claimed a TV audience of 70 million per rally in 2022 and 50 million per rally in 2005. Now, we don't have any reliable TV audience figures from before the 2000s, only the claim that WRC was more popular than Formula One at the time. However, I haven't found any evidence that actually supports this claim. The 2022 figure would mostly consist of people watching the televised stages and highlights packages rather than the full rally on Rally TV. Now, for those of you who want to watch WRC, you can watch every stage live, but you can also watch it the old style potentially for cheaper, depending on who your local broadcaster is. I've left a link in the description to WRC's information about its global broadcasters in whatever region you're in. That being said, there are free-to-air broadcasts in these European countries, as well as New Zealand, Kenya, and Japan. Additionally, if you're in a European country without a direct free-to-air deal, but you're near the border of a country that does have one, you might be able to pick up their signal. Okay, so it had a lack of manufacturers and there isn't any evidence to actually support the claim that it was more popular than F1. But the rallies were so much more exciting back then, right? Well, not really. These days, the results are much closer. All rallies where the final lead gap was under 1 second have been after the year 2000. In the Group B era, the winner often had multiple minutes in hand. Rally results were generally determined by reliability, not speed. Now, one last myth. The most iconic Group B car of all time. The Audi Quattro wasn't actually a Group B car. The Quattro first entered a rally under Group 4 regulations, not Group B regulations. In Group B, the Quattro was what was known as a carryover car, where they were allowed to transfer the homologation from Group 4 into Group B. Also, the Quattro wasn't really that successful. Once other manufacturers showed up with purpose-built Group B cars, the Quattro, being more road-based, meant that although it was more sturdy, it just wasn't fast enough anymore because it was hundreds of kilograms heavier than the other cars. This is not to say that Group B was terrible. It had its merits. The cars were technologically very unique and very advanced. They were also very challenging to drive in their own unique way. In fact, the all-wheel drive systems they ran at the time, they couldn't do handbrake turns, so they had to do Scandinavian flicks on tarmac. But the reality is, even when you consider that they were technologically interesting, that they were difficult to drive in very unique ways, and that they had very diverse ideas on how to build a rally car, Group B is overrated. The cars didn't beat a Formula One car at Estoril. They aren't the fastest rally cars of all time. They weren't constantly flat out on the limit of grip. The results weren't close. The trouble is, a whole bunch of people who've never watched a single round of the World Rally Championship and who think that the sport is called rally racing and not just rallying, and who don't know who Kalle Rovanperä, Oyt Tanak and Thierry Neuville are, and think that Ken Block was one of the best rally drivers of all time, yet insist they're real rally fans, spam the internet with nonsensical and ridiculous claim about Group B cars, which they'd probably refer to as Group B rally racing cars. Badmouth any other era of WRC and act as if all other cars are slow, boring and underpowered, but these myths need to die, and hopefully they will soon enough.